name is Jonah Jonathan, and welcome once again to the Jazz Musician's Voice. Today I have a topic that's a fairly controversial one because it involves money, but it's really the topic of should you go to jazz school in 2019? Should you go to jazz school? It's a really debatable topic. Really, jazz schools didn't come about in their current form until the 1970s, and it's a fairly controversial topic. Obviously, jazz schools are a good place to go, technically, for musicians who want to get their feet wet in jazz and become a professional musician. But if you look back, a lot of the main players didn't go to school for jazz. If they did go to school, it was for classical music, and many of them went just part-time to learn the technique and then left school early. You could say that the real school of jazz back in the day was on the bandstand, going to jam sessions and learning from particularly musicians. But as music came along, degrees became an option for you to get your bachelor's degree, and as a musician or any other person in the field, having a degree, I guess, adds some assurances for you when you're getting gigs and things. So that's something you could consider. I actually know of quite a few players in this modern day who went to school and conservatory for classical music and are actually really fantastic musicians, jazz musicians. So it's really something that you need to look at further detail. Something that a lot of musicians don't realize is that music programs used to be much more advanced, even in elementary school through high school. A lot of elementary schools, they had a piano, they were singing, working on instruments, even multiple instruments. And you can look at a school like the Cass Tech School, for example. It was actually a technical school, but they had a music program. And some of the top musicians out of Detroit came out of there, such as Ron Carter and Paul Chambers and Diana Ross, many other musicians. And they actually had programs that were similar to college music programs. Choir, learning multiple instruments, learning piano. So I really think, music programs in early times have really degraded, which leaves the opening for programs like music conservatory or jazz camps as ways for young musicians to try to learn jazz. So what would be some of the pros of going to a music program for jazz? So music programs and jazz programs bring together a lot of well-established jazz musicians and give you an opportunity to learn from them on a daily basis, and try to replicate some of the mentorship program that previously existed in jazz. In that same particular sense, you're also going to meet a lot of musical peers that are with you in that program that you'll develop lifelong relationships with, friendships, and potential gigs. In a conservatory program, you're going to have the opportunity to learn music theory, take lessons with your instruments. You're going to learn jazz theory, ear training, um, composition. There's so many things that you can learn in a jazz conservatory. Another advantage of music programs, in most senses, is that you're going to have practice rooms. Rooms where you can literally just lock yourself away and practice, and they're open sometimes 24 hours. So you get a real chance to work on your instrument and dedicate yourself to getting better. You will be in ensembles that try to replicate bandstand situations, and that can only be good for you getting more experience playing. At least in my conservatory, you get the opportunity to watch really talented musicians on a daily basis, and many times in midday performances. So you get a chance to see concerts basically for free. In some schools, like mine, where I went to at William Patterson University, you get a chance to take other classes that are not part of music to give you a comprehensive degree. Well, you get like basically a Bachelor of Arts. So that's an advantage. So if you go to music school in the New York City area, within a 20 or 30-mile radius, you get a chance to go into New York on a daily, if not weekly basis, and you get a chance to go into jam sessions, and that's quite a great opportunity. But if you go to a music school in another area, you're not going to have that same experience. I personally believe, New York is not like it's like nowhere else in the world. The level of playing is much higher than anywhere else I've experienced. So now let's look into some of the serious cons of attending a jazz program in 2019. So if you look at the top music programs in New York, which is the Mecca for jazz, the prices are really hard to justify. Let's take a look at some of the music programs that you might want to attend. The ones that are the big name ones and the reason you go to school, get that on your diploma. So if you look at Manhattan School of Music, and I'm talking about basically no financial assistance, you're looking at about $288,000 for 4 years of music school. Think about $280,000. That's enough money to buy a nice house and live comfortably in certain places in this country. That's a lot of money. You take that kind of money out as a school loan. I just don't see where you're going to be able to pay that back anytime soon. So that's something to think about. A price like that would probably be close to 70 something thousand a year, which is just an insane amount of money, especially if you're going to take out school loans. So if you look at Juilliard School of Music, the prestigious school, it's really not that far behind. You're looking at about 70,000 per year, which is a figure, it's putting you pretty close to the price of the Manhattan School of Music. So if you look at the New School of Music, you're talking about 200,000 for 4 years. Look at these prices. These prices are basically the kind of thing you're paying for medical school. And you go to medical school, you actually have a chance of making money to pay it off. But jazz degree, I'm not sure. So if you look at the Berklee School of Music, you're still talking about 45,000 per year. So these prices in some of those schools, I just don't see where the money is going to come to pay back the school loans. So let's look at some cheaper schools, and I went to William Patterson personally, and you're still looking at about 80,000 for 4 years. It's still a pretty high price, and in City College, it's probably going to be a little cheaper, but it's still way up there. So if you look at school loans, they're actually pretty rough. I personally have about a little over 100,000 in school loans, and that's including grad school. And I defer them right now, but the interest is high, so the prices goes up. I just don't see the way to pay those things, even if you're working. It makes it difficult. And if you want to buy a house eventually, it really messes with your credit. So you really have to think about whether you want to take out that kind of debt to go to music school. So hardly any jazz program that I've heard of talks about the business side of jazz and getting gigs and music. And in many cases, you finish your degree and there's no help to get gigs or teaching jobs. So you finish your degree and you're pretty much on your own. See if you can get some gigs and see where it takes you. So, if you're a young musician, in the end, you really just need to think about your future and where you want to go with life and with music. I think you need to examine that the world is changing drastically, and things just aren't what they used to be, even just 10 years ago. So I started my music program at William Patterson back in 2007. And back then, streaming hadn't become the big thing that it is now. Even then, there was a lot of concern about how people are making money, whether you come out with a record or what's going on. So that's really something you gotta consider how music is changing. If you take a look at some of the gigs you might get, you're talking $100 gigs, that was the same thing back in the 60s and 70s, being paid $100 for a gig. You're getting paid that or even less now. And I don't know how you. It's a topic that needs to be explored. I think maybe the musicians need to come together and demand more pay for their gigs, and also need to stand up to these streaming giants like Spotify and others, and get paid more for their music. In the end, if you're making jazz, you're doing it because you love it, and not necessarily because you're gonna make much money in it. But it's a brotherhood, sisterhood for female musicians, and you think of it as like monks or Jedi or whatever. The master musicians are respected, and uh, they truly enjoy making their music. So that's something you gotta look at if you're gonna get into this. So you really need to take a look at the jazz programs now and realize that a lot of the people teaching it, they're making the money off of you without you having necessarily a possible financial gain in the long run. A guy, Mulgrew Miller, took me aside. He passed away now, but took me aside and said, certain musicians, it's really like 1 in 1,000 who really are making it as a serious musician, getting paid the real respect. And I'm not talking about those musicians who have like a publicist and don't really play. I'm talking about the real major jazz musicians. So think about that. So my personal opinion, 12 or so years ago when I started, I think it looked like a pretty appealing thing to go to music school. But if I was gonna do it again in 2019, I'd probably most likely reconsider. I went to William Patterson because Mulgrew Miller was there, and it was very close to New York City, and I got a chance to go in for jam sessions and all that stuff. But 2019, if you're a young person, think long and hard. You really should consider possibilities like going to school for something else as a fallback plan where you can really make some money and then take lessons privately with the people you really want to study with. Because at the end of the day, you could do the same thing that you do in music school on your own. You just have to have the practice and the patience and the dedication. So, uh, something to think about. Should you go to music school? This is for the young cats, and I know there's going to be a debate, so leave your comments or make responses, but this is a video for you guys. Thank you. Please subscribe to the Jazz Musician's Voice and check out future videos and share these videos. Thank you.